everybody. So first review for 2020, we're talking about the latest horror film, The Grudge 2020. I do have to make that distinction because we already got a film with the same name back in 2004, The Grudge, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, set in the same kind of storyline. I am an overall fan of the actual Grudge series. I really like the Japanese ones, Ju-on the Grudge and Ju-on the Grudge 2. And even the first American remake, the 2004 one, I actually thought was fairly decent for what it was. I didn't really like either The Grudge 2 or The Grudge 3. The series as a whole has kind of been in developmental hell since then. I mean, that was back in 2009 when The Grudge 3 went straight to video. So, I mean, it's been a long time. January is usually not a very good month for movies as a whole. It's usually like the month where studios kind of dump all films they don't have a lot of faith in. Usually it's horror movie related, because last year we got Escape Room, and then we also got Insidious: The Last Key the year before that. So usually horror films are a main fixture in January, February releases. I am sad to report, though, that The Grudge does not kick off the 2020 movie season on a right note. I thought this was actually pretty awful. Don't buy into what they're saying in the trailers where it's like the twisted new vision and stuff like that. It's basically the same Grudge formula. They're just taking that Grudge curse. You actually see Kayako for like a solid 3-4 seconds, and then the curse just shifts to somebody else and goes to the US with a new family. It basically is just that same idea that we've seen done in other Grudge films where the curse follows people from the house. And she kills her family and they pretty much become the new Kayako, Toshio, and all of them. They basically even have like the same kind of stuff where Toshio is drowned in the bathtub, and obviously Kayako and the female character in this were basically the same kind of idea. They're kind of just Americanizing it, whitewashing it, whatever you want to call it. The story as well is very muddled. It's just all over the place between different time periods. We got like 4 different plot lines going on at the same time at one point during the story, because you got the main story in the current time where it's Andrea Riseborough's character and Damien Bashir. They're investigating what happened to the people in the house in the current day. Then you got the flashbacks of Lynn Shay and her husband in the house and the stuff that goes on with them. Then you also got the realtor that's played by John Cho and his wife Betty Gilpin. Then very briefly we get a little storyline with William Sadler as Damien Bashir's partner. All of these storylines kind of like converge a little bit just because as they're investigating it, they get shown, but none of them are really that interesting. They're all pretty much given no personality, no sort of development whatsoever. They're kind of just in the story to have some creepy little jump scares come out at them every now and then, have a little bit of gross out moments, and then inevitably meet their demise, because we all know that they're going to meet their demise because we're in the present day. We know that some of these people don't make it. So it kind of just lacks all tension for the scares because you know that they're going to get it. You would think with all of these different storylines going on, there would actually be something interesting to put on screen, but for the most part, it's actually very slow burn, very dull, a lot of dialogue scenes that kind of just get really tedious after a while. There's just nothing really grabbing you, keeping you interested in the movie. Like, I would be surprised if people checked out halfway through this film because there's really not much going on in the sense of keeping your interest. And the main thing that all of us come to as horror fans for these movies is the scares, and I would say about 95% of the scares in this film are jump scares. Poorly executed jump scares, might I add. They're not really good, effective jump scares. You know that they're coming from a mile away for the most part every single time. When those jump scares where they're walking through a really dark room with a flashlight on and it gets all quiet and something's eventually going to jump out and be gross, and it's basically like that for the entire runtime of this film. I also don't really understand why this film needed to be rated R. I know that they pushed that in the marketing as well, that this Grudge film is rated R. Most of the R rating that goes into this is the gross stuff like I mentioned, or just blood and guts and gore, and it doesn't really add too much. It's actually kind of distracting. Also pretty much never get a good look at the new cursed family members. You get like little glimpses here and there of flashes of what they look like, but they really don't linger on them too long. I don't know if the film thinks that that's effective, don't show them on screen too much, but I think they kind of just chose not to show them a whole lot because they look really bad. Like, because you could, when you're watching the original Grudge films, whether it be Ju-on the Grudge or the American ones, you see Kayako and Toshio a bunch. Like, you in full view. Like, you see them a good amount. You don't really get to see too much of them this time. And I think that's for a good reason. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, this is not a great start to 2020 when it comes to films. It's definitely, I would categorize it in the snooze fest category. You're definitely not going to get too much out of this film. Especially if you're a fan of the franchise of Ju-on the Grudge. I don't think you're going to get too much out of this. It's definitely a very forgettable entry in the series. It's definitely, I recommend you watch any of the other entries in the series, except probably The Grudge 3, because that's a straight-to-DVD thing we don't really talk about too much. But even that had some moments that was like at least kind of scary. This one is kind of just very gross and dull, and pretty much nothing about it is worth mentioning as a positive. I think this is probably an early contender for one of the worst movies of the year, even though we're only on the second day of 2020. Those are just my thoughts on The Grudge 2020. If you see the film, make sure you leave a comment section down below. What did you think of the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think as a fan of The Grudge, if you're a fan of the series? And also, what is your favorite entry in the Grudge series, whether it be the American ones, the Japanese ones? Let's go, all that stuff. Let's get a discussion going in the comments. I talk about all things movies here. But thank you so much, as always, for checking out my videos. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. Hit that subscribe button if you want to keep up to date with my reviews, trailer reactions, unboxings, and more. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.